We're in a fourth line day. Hello. Gate 50 in the fourth line is called corruption. We move into the upper trigram, the transpersonal fourth line of externalization. This is the ability to externalize the law. When we got to this point in our evolutionary process, this was when we had our first city-states, our first cities, our first, excuse me, our first enclosed communities. And of course, the moment that you have that, this is the moment when you start getting corruption. Ra said that he loved lines that had these kinds of names, and he wished that all 384 lines had come through to him with kind of savage keynotes to keep us all jumping up and down and being concerned and having to confront our word prejudice. Corruption is one of those great lines. You know, where would we be without the corrupt judge? It sounds like a bad thing. But when the law says that if you get caught smoking a joint, they're going to put you in jail for the rest of your life, and then you get a judge who says, that's ridiculous, that doesn't make any kind of sense, I'm going to fine you 10 quid and send you home. Well, technically, that's a corrupt judge. We think of corruption as a negative term. We don't always see it in its place. The fourth line here in this transpersonal process realizes that the laws that have been established in the lower trigram aren't necessarily laws that the other can accept. The laws may have to change, be refined. The values may have to be corrupted, and the larger the community, the deeper the corruption of the values. Corruption is not to be seen as a negative. No, it can be seen as something uncomfortable, yes. You know, this is the breaking of a rule, the ability to break a rule and change the game. And of course, that could be a negative. We know that. You know, so you get paid off in order to get your contract through, that kind of thing. But as a duality, you know, it's important not to get caught up in the prejudices of just seeing the negative connotation of a word. First and fourth lines have a resonance to each other. We saw that the first line was called the immigrant, who has no values. He comes to the new land, he has to find its foundation, develop it, and refine its values. When you get to the resonance in the fourth line, there are no values. It's the same process, it's just at another level. There's a lifetime learning here which says a lack of enriching values. The exaltation says the malefic gift of turning inferior values into material success. Given this difficult position, Saturn's exaltation, is that its actions are limited to selfishness and unsavoriness rather than criminality. The capacity to maintain one's strength despite inferior values. I had to look up the word malefic. It means malevolent or evil. So the capacity to maintain your strength despite the inferior values around you, or despite your own inferior values. And it's okay to have inferior values. It's just a judgment call to say otherwise. This is about being focused and one-tracked. It's a fourth line. It's very fixed. And because of that, you will do anything to externalize. There's no adaptation here. This is the need to externalize. The strength is that you are going to externalize this value, whatever it is. You know, the weakness lies in the fact that because you are so caught up in having to externalize that, you pay the price. You will be corrupted simply to be able to get your own way. Perhaps your fixedness and your externalization of your values comes in being the most committed fruitarian ever to walk the planet. And you end up corrupting your own body because you're not nourishing it correctly. Corruption can come in many forms. Ra said that he met many doctors and homeopaths with the 50 line 4 in an open splenic center, and they could smell corruption. They could smell disease in the body when a person walked into the room. And this is a gift. And you could almost look at it that it's a gift that the body is expressing disease in this way in order for other people to pick it up. And then there to be the possibility for it to be treated. So it's important not to demonize these words, but to sort of be open to both sides of the binary. Ra talked about an Italian company that was involved in a dirty hands business in Italy. And there were lots of scandals associated with this company. They were paying bribes. And because of that, they couldn't list the bribes in their books. So the books were distorted. And due to that, the assets and the values of the company were also distorted. And how much money they were actually making, that was distorted. And when all of this finally came out, they were sued by the stock market and shareholders because there was so much falsehood around what they had created. So you can end up with a kind of chain reaction. You do your little bit of a corruption over here on the side because it works and it keeps you happy. But then the whole thing kind of snowballs and gets bigger and bigger and it blows up in your face. The fourth line is linked to brotherhood, sisterhood in gate 59 and the emotional wave of kindness and meanness. All fourth lines are inherently corrupt. All of them. They're all trying to externalize their fixed line in their way. And in trying to do that, they're willing to make compromises and willing to do things that are not necessarily of value to them. So this awareness, gate 50 is an awareness gate. There is an awareness to that. If you've got this line of corruption, then there is something in that for you. It's not about eliminating it. It's about becoming aware of it. It's the same with any of these lines. We become aware of them rather than try and fight with them and say they're shitty lines or whatever it is. We're not trying to fix them because they're not broken. They're highlighting something that we are here to experience as we are visiting on this plane this time around. Gate 3 in the fourth line is called charisma. Yeah, a little charisma could go a long way when you're in the corruption business. I'd say that's quite a nice little grounding for it in a way. Mercury moved into gate 1 at 8:22 this morning. This brings us a channel with Uranus in gate 8. Gate 1 is in the G center and gate 8 is the throat. Together they form the channel of inspiration, the creative role model. This is an individual channel. It's empowering, it's inspiring for others. When others can see you creating in your own way, being a role model for them, you don't actually have to empower anybody else, but it's great when you do. And you don't have to do anything to empower them. You're just being yourself. You're being your individual, glorious self. And other people are like, that looks interesting. I might have a go at that. Anyway, this channel is active for the next 4 days. Venus moves into gate 9 at 14:42. This is the gate of focus, and it brings us a channel for a short while with the moon in gate 52. This is the channel of concentration. It's a format channel. On its own, gate 9 brings us the ability to grasp the finer details of things. It's a logical gate in collective circuitry, so it's really, really useful when it comes to reading the fine print in a contract, for example, quite a valuable trait. Without gate 52, focus might be fractured, and you can focus, but you have a lot of things going on. Gate 52 brings you the ability to sit down and concentrate, or maybe stand up and concentrate, but the concentration, it's being still and concentrating that is the key. The moon has been in gate 52, supporting or meeting Venus as Venus moves in there, and it's keeping still mountain. It's the root center gate of inaction, making the channel, as say with Venus, as we've just heard. Then the moon stays in the root center, going into gate 39 at 16:39. This is the gate of provocation and obstruction. Individuality. It's trying to find the spirit at the other end of the channel and can become very melancholy when it doesn't find that spirit. There can be a pressure to provoke because the root center is both a pressure center and a motor. And the provocation doesn't have to be conscious or deliberate. If you have this gate consistently, you might have had the experience where you can just walk into a room and you've managed to wind someone up without any effort on your part at all. And of course, if you do wind them up, then maybe you need to explore whether they are for you or not. They may be carrying a spirit that just doesn't match. It's not good or bad. It's just, it doesn't match. And finally, gate 53. This is an abstract collective gate, the gate of beginnings. It's called development. It's a format gate. It's bringing the flavor of the cycles of life, the natural beginnings that also lead to endings. All of the format activations are in generator channels because they're between the sacral center and the root. And this tells us in this particular case that correct beginnings are made through response. Our authority, whatever our authority is, will let us know whether we have the energy for it or not. So that is gate 50 in the line 4. Thank you very much for joining me. I will see you tomorrow for a 5th line. And until then, as always, go gently.